like to spend a few moments talking about actual research on fasting. Now, fasting has been around as long as man has been here, I'm sure. But the consistency in the research is impressive with fasting. Here's one article, let's see, Nutritional Metabolism and Cardiovascular Disease. This is 2012. It says randomized crossover trial of short-term water fasting only. So randomized means we don't know who's doing what. Crossover means once we've picked the population, that the population that did this particular intervention first is now switched for the other one. In other words, this is as bulletproof as we can get it from a scientific standpoint. These are the gold standards for science here. Here's what they found out. Routine, periodic fasting is associated with lower prevalence of coronary artery disease. And it goes on. Apparently healthy volunteers, they put the word apparently in there because they couldn't guarantee it, without recent history of fasting were enrolled in a random crossover trial. A one-day water-only fast was the intervention, and changes in the biomarkers were the study endpoints. And here's the biomarkers. The biomarkers were human growth hormone, hemoglobin, red blood cell count, hematocrit, total cholesterol, HDL, good cholesterol, triglycerides, that's your blood fat, bicarbonate, weight, and they compared these. Here's what they found. One-day water fast, let's see. I'm trying to answer that question myself. It appears that this was a single intervention. One day only, and this is what they got, in one day, 24-hour period for water fasting. Here's the research. It says a one-day fasting intervention acutely, so that would mean obviously short-term, increased human growth hormone. Most of the time you think of human growth hormone is getting taller and kids growing up and a pituitary dwarf and all this type of thing. For an adult, human growth hormone does more to normalize brain function and is one of your best antidepressants you can get your hands on naturally. And human growth hormone usually is increased when you sleep. These people had an increase in human growth hormone. They had an increase in hemoglobin. Now wait a minute. They didn't eat any iron. They didn't eat any steak. They ate nothing all day for 24 hours, but yet their hemoglobin went up. The next thing that went up was their red blood cell count. So if you're anemic, don't eat. People go, you're nuts. If I don't eat, I'm already anemic, how do you expect me to get better? I'm saying let the body do its job. Fasting actually allows your body to show you how smart it is, so to speak. Fasting allows you to not be messing up your own metabolism. Because when you put the body in fasting mode, it has to make the decisions for how much sugar it releases into the bloodstream from the liver. It makes the decisions about how much cholesterol you need. It makes the decision for how your red blood cell count would be. Amazing. That's why I say, if I could learn the secrets of my body. We also found that the total cholesterol went up, and you wouldn't expect that, but let's face the next fact. The part of the total cholesterol went up was the good guy. The HDL went up. It didn't say the LDL went up. What decreased, and you'd expect this, was blood fats. Triglycerides went down. Fasting is one of the quickest ways to lower your triglyceride level. Bicarbonate went down. Why do you need bicarbonate in your body? Exactly. When the body isn't eating, you decrease the inflammation, you're having less acid production, so therefore you don't need something to neutralize the acid. What do you use sodium bicarbonate? What do you use baking soda for? When your battery boils over and you don't want it to eat the metal in your car. Why do people use sodium bicarbonate when they, quote, eat too well? Because the acid is getting to them. So if you need less acid protection, then you must be producing less acid. And let's see, did they have one more on here? Bicarbonate and weight. People lost weight, which you would expect. They burn fuel all day and don't put anything in except for water. Next research. This is about stem cells. What they found out, and this is Dr. Walter Longo out of not UCLA, this is just USC, University of Southern California. Let me get here he writes, quote, starving the body kickstarts stem cells into producing new white blood cells which fight off infection. And fasting flips the regenerative switch which promotes stem cells to create brand new white blood cells, essentially regenerating the entire immune system. If a person is fighting a serious if you're fighting cancer, fasting is one of the best things you can do. Now, this was actually a 3-day that he recommends here. He says also, he added, with a system heavily damaged by chemotherapy or aging, fasting cycles, well, obviously you're doing it more than once, can generate literally a new immune system. Let the body do its job. Stop messing it up. In the Times of India, obviously a newspaper from India, came out with an article entitled, Fast 8 Days a Year to Boost Your Immunity. It also reported from the same California study that fasting forced the body to initiate stem cells to regenerate and rebuild the entire system. And they go through what they call unlimited and limited stem cells and what they do. But I want to cover this one. Increasing the duration of overnight fasting could be a novel strategy to reduce the risk of developing breast cancer. They're not even talking about fasting 24 hours here. They're talking about eating breakfast at 7 and lunch at 2 and nothing else. If you contain your eating time to 6 hours and have 18-hour fast every day, those ladies in that group have less cancer. There's something about allowing the body to reorganize itself and not continually feeding. Now, most people will consider me a terrorist because I'm advocating only eating 2 meals a day. And that if you don't give a child at school a snack and feed them 4 times when they're at school, you're actually illegal. And we wonder why we're doing this to the kids. Women who fasted for longer periods of time overnight had significantly better control over blood glucose concentrations. So let's put 1 and 1 together here. High blood glucose causes increasing breast cancer. Therefore, diabetics have more breast cancer. The data shows that each 3-hour increase in nighttime fasting was associated with a 4% lower postprandial glucose level. Can't put numbers on everybody, but what they're saying is the longer times they fast, the better they did. Fasting weakens cancer. Well, why would fasting weaken cancer cells? I know a lot about breast cancer because most cancers that I treat are ladies with breast cancer. A breast cancer cell consumes 17 times the amount of fuel as a normal cell. So I had this real problem. How do I explain that something the size of my fist kills my whole lady? Oh, wait a minute. She's 120 pounds. This weighs 1.5 pounds. How can 1.5 pounds anything take my whole lady? Guess what? Increase it by 17 times the consumption rate and increase it 17 times the production of toxin rate, and you can overload a healthy body. That's the explanation. So listen to this. Fasting causes a beneficial effect even if a person takes chemotherapy. Fasting makes chemotherapy more effective. Because why? The cancer cell is trying to do everything it can to feed itself. So if I give you chemotherapy, who's going to eat the most of it? Cancer cell. See, this is the whole goal for cancer treatment in the medical model. How can I specifically target the cancer cell? If I can find a trick of the trade or a chemical that the cancer cell will take up and the normal cell won't, I've got something. They say fasting does that. Let me read on. In a case report study, which means that just the patients are volunteering information, with self-reported data, this is their own opinion, but that's still okay, published in the Journal of Aging in 2010, 10 cancer patients who tried fasting cycles perceived fewer side effects from chemotherapy. So the chemotherapy was actually more productive. Another area that some doctors are working in is giving you insulin prior to your chemotherapy. And these aren't diabetic patients. They give you insulin because they drop the blood sugar, and your normal cell can handle a blood sugar level at 50. A cancer cell, they're starving, and they will take up anything they can get their hands on, so to speak. So all they got to do is target the cancer cell and put a little bit of sugar with the medicine, and they'd have an awesome thing for killing a lot more. But see, you hear what this is all saying. We're still basing it on taking chemotherapy. Now, let's take one step further in this study. In several cases, the fasting cycles were effective as chemotherapy. So they compared it one with the other. This fasting group, chemotherapy group. But the quote that I was looking for, let me see if I can find it quickly here. In this study, this is a long ago study again, the team showed that fasting protected normal cells against chemotherapy. Let me read that again. That fasting actually protected the normal cells against chemotherapy. That's what we're trying to do here, but did not address the effect of cancer cells. Then a following study to that said another study on the range of cancers with common chemotherapy drugs in 2008, results showed that fasting not only fails to protect the cancer cells, but makes them more vulnerable. So first of all, fasting protects your normal cells. Fasting does not protect the cancer cells. And not only does it not protect them, it makes them more likely, more vulnerable, more likely to be killed. So even in a worst case scenario, the person's got cancer and they're on chemotherapy drugs, if they fast, I'm trying to prove a point. You have to be in the, you're correct. You would want to be in the fasting mode in the body. Here's a specific one. Fasting selectively blocks development of acute lymphocytic leukemia, ALL. I won't read that one. Observing once-weekly water fast lowers cholesterol and reduces the risk of diabetes. So fasting 1 day a week, one water fast a week, evidence for benefit from that. And positive effects from intermittent fasting on ischemic stroke. Obviously, ischemic stroke is one where you have lack of blood flow, like a clot being formed. A hemorrhagic stroke, which is about 15% of strokes, is where you pop a vessel. You have an aneurysm, something happens in the brain, you have a bleed. And that gets really tricky because if you give every one of your patients aspirin, you can kill 15% and make them bleed quicker. That's not the goal here. Let me read this. Intermittent fasting is a dietary protocol where energy restriction, here they're trying to make it sound good, is introduced by alternate periods of ad lib feeding and fasting. Somebody's a better writer than I am. I just call it water fasting. Prophylactic intermittent fasting has been shown to extend the lifespan and attenuate the progress of severe age-related diseases such as cardiovascular disease, stroke, myocardial infarction, neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and cancerous diseases. And you can go online and get all that you want on fasting. It's the reason I bring it up is because most people in America actually need to fast. When they say weight loss for a 24-hour water fast, some people almost get upset because they say, I fasted all day, I'm only down 1 pound. Well, that just proves the body gets more efficient. That's what it proves. Sometimes fasting clears the mind up so well that you realize in the end, if I could be this sharp all the time, it'd be really great. But I'm going, wait a minute, you can't fast the rest of your life. That's called suicide. So, but the proper, giving the body a cleansing opportunity. So we've got one that does it 24-hour water fast. We've got Dr. Longo. What he's known as, he's like in geriatrics. So if you read his studies, Dr. Walter Longo, he recommends a 3-day water fast for a person who's either been on chemotherapy, for a person who's basically just trying to redo their immune system. So, if you want to try this, I would start out with 24-hour. Eat breakfast one day, and then eat breakfast the next day. If you're only on 2 meals a day, I only miss 1 meal, so it even sounds better. I didn't say I didn't get hungry. I probably drink more water, but that's okay. And I don't lay at night worrying about my next pizza because I don't have to worry about it. No, I had a very good breakfast this morning, and it makes you look forward to it, right? You know, what's that? Loneliness makes the heart grow fonder, or something like that, or fasting makes the stomach, whatever. And you got the point. Okay, inflammation can be corrected by fasting. See, no matter what we do and whatever approach you take, whether what you eat, whether it's your exercise, whether it's your sleep, whether it's your stress level, your whole goal is to get rid of that red word. The reason you have so much cell turnover in your intestinal tract every 5 to 7 days is because the process of digestion is one of the most expensive processes in your body. That's why you're having a harder time staying asleep now. Staying awake now than before the meal. See, I got you. Therefore, what's happening right now is I'm in competition with your brain. I'm trying to get your brain to work instead of having that 20% of your blood flow go to your intestines to digest, and sometimes that takes work. This is why in your cardiac patient, you never exercise them after a meal, because you're automatically creating an ischemic condition, because 20% of blood flow is supposed to go to the brain, 20% is supposed to go to digestion, and another 20 or 30%, depending on muscle activity. You got a problem here for your ischemic patient. They don't need more, quote, things to dilate the vessels. What they need is to exercise prior to their meal. Yes, always prior to. Or 4 or 5 hours after, sure, but what I'm trying to say is you don't want to exercise a patient on a full stomach. It's just not wise. They'll have a lot more angina.
Any patient or cardiac patient?
Cardiac specifically. Okay. Other patients should be able to tolerate it. Okay. Inflammation. I made this point before, but it is part of a healthy immune response. And when I say a healthy immune response, what I mean is the body uses inflammatory process to kill cancer cells. I don't mean it's healthy to have bursitis in the shoulder. Low-level chronic inflammation is excessive, inappropriate inflammatory response. So how many hips and knees and shoulders and everything we're doing these days has got more to do with the person's diet than they wore that joint out. Your joints technically shouldn't wear out. They can be misused, overused, that type of thing. But if the inflammation was not there, yes, you should be able to run 10 miles every day of your life for the rest of your life and have no problems. Linked to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, even depression and mood swings. Outline of today, we're going to look at inflammation, the role of inflammation in coronary artery disease, and the foods that contribute. We're going to spend most of our time on practical stuff and the foods this afternoon, so I may skip a few. Here's the 2 models that we work on. The risk factor model is the most common model we use for determinant. And risk factors technically are not the disease, but we look at that and we say if your cholesterol is up, then you are at more risk. If your blood sugar is up, you're diabetic, you're at more risk for heart disease. If you smoke, if you drink, we call those all risk factors. So in that model, you have your traditional risk factors and your inflammatory markers. They lead to blocking up your vessels, and there's cardiovascular disease. In the marker model, We say that traditional risk factors have inflammatory markers. Atherosclerosis tells me inflammatory markers. And by the way, I'll explain what they are and show you what tests we do for inflammatory markers. And that leads to cardiovascular disease. So you see which you want to be part of. So a high plasma LDL cholesterol is a major risk factor that causes the development of atherosclerosis. Beyond LDL, other lipids are pro-inflammatory, including triglycerides, VLDL, very low density lipoprotein, and small particle LDL. Well, my theory is that is a major risk factor that causes development of atherosclerosis. LDL does not cause atherosclerosis. LDL is laid down as a result of vessel wall inflammation. So I do believe in using risk factors to get people to change their life. But that is not the base cause. So are you dealing with risk factors or inflammatory factors? Inflammation plays a role in all stages of atherosclerosis, correct? And increased circulating levels of inflammatory markers may indicate the process is going on. Here's your markers. Some of you will recognize these tests. C-reactive protein. Now, C-reactive protein in general can come from any inflamed tissue in the body, whether it's bursitis, whether it's your blood vessels, whether it's your brain. And I'm in a whole area now where I don't have a reasonable explanation why some people, and I don't think they need a shrink, why some people are coming to me and they say, I've got this problem. I'm using a general term on them right now that it's got to be more development. Maybe it's going to take another career. More development, I'm just using it in general terms of brain inflammation. I'm seeing people that are not functioning well mentally, but yet there's no test that I can do to them or do on them. We don't have a test yet to monitor how inflamed the brain is. I can measure cognitive function by certain kinds of testing. I can measure their memory, I can measure their motivation, and I measure all this, but you still can't get down to the essence. And I guess I'm still enough of a scientist. I like to test and I like to know, but anyway. The next one is C-reactive protein, HS. HS stands for highly sensitive. You also may know it as CRP or cardiac CRP. This one is specifically for coronary arteries. If this level is up, then I know that I have got an active inflammatory process going on in your coronary arteries and you're laying down plaque. It's for protection's sake. Cytokines. Obviously, certain types of tissue put off cytokines. They obviously are an inflammatory response that the immune system is in high gear. The difficulty with the immune system is sometimes the immune system can be, quote, misprogrammed and do things to your body you don't want. I've been blaming the immune system for a lot of things like autoimmune disease. The appropriate blame for the immune system isn't just saying it went wacky. You find the reason it went wacky. Why is it sensitized? What made it do that? It wasn't the peanuts, folks. It was called leaky gut syndrome because the child is on Ritalin and drinking too many Cokes, and the mother wanted to save him from getting all that sugar, and so she gives him artificial drinks, which actually raises havoc on the bowel wall. And so there's got to be a reason why this child can go into anaphylactic shock because of a peanut allergy. The peanuts are not the problem. The problem is the child has developed a sensitivity to it through some immune response for some reason. I'm still looking for those reasons. Adipokines, adipose tissue, these are inflammatory markers from the fat cell, and we see that most time we look at my fat cells as just storage. I eat too much, it gets stuck away in storage. When I need it, it'll come back and take care of me. We look at fat cells as strictly storage. Fat cells are not storage. Fat cells are chemically producing cells just like any other cell in the body. Why do you think I can get this test here from the endothelium of my coronary arteries? See, laboratory medicine is getting kind of fun. I did my bachelor work in laboratory medicine, so I'm into this good. But laboratory medicine is now not just looking for finding a chemical and saying, here's what it does. Laboratory medicine is dealing with what's your body telling me. Can I find a chemical that tells me that my coronary arteries are messed up? And the answer is yes. And they're getting more and more of this type of test that we can see what are the indicators. Blood fat, most of the time when you get your blood drawn, it should be less than 50% cells down here, and mostly red blood cells, and more than 50% serum, what's on top. Now, any of you that have drawn blood and look at this tube, you go, oh my, he had too much milk for breakfast. Well, that may be part of the problem. We call that milky. It should be nice and clear like straw color. This person's very lipemic. They've got so much triglyceride floating around in their blood that's a wonder they aren't short of breath, because you can't transfer oxygen as well. And their hematocrit is way too high, because it almost looks like 50% of this blood here, which means you have too many cells. I'm starting to touch on the reason why you're seeing so many people that have to be on Plavix or Coumadin or heparin or one of the other blood thinners. The reason we're seeing more and more Americans that are coming in and getting on blood thinners is because of, you named it, vessel wall inflammation. They're doing something in their diet. They're dehydrated some reason. This is what they call the postprandial state. What you're seeing there, the red is obviously red blood cells. The white would be considered, or the greenish would be considered white blood cells. What do you think those big yellow things are? That is fat under the microscope in your bloodstream. That's what you're seeing. So when we say postprandial state is toxic, when you see this much fat in the bloodstream, that's what it looks like with the naked eye when you draw the blood. Now, why am I concerned about this postprandial state? Well, the postprandial state is where we're at right now. I ate lunch. Postprandial means, after a meal. So this is after a meal. So if you had a high-fat meal, I would expect it to take my energy, to affect my brain. I can't concentrate. My energy level would drop, et cetera, et cetera. You're hanging out with a bunch of old people. See, young people can eat French fries and get away with it, see. I used to be able to. So here I've got my blood, way too much fat in my blood. Let's take a look at what that does. The effect of postprandial hyperglycemia. So I've got postprandial high blood sugar, they call it dysmetabolism, or poor or bad metabolism, on the vascular system. What does it do? Well, the first thing is endothelial dysfunction. Remember I told you this morning that high blood pressure was endothelial dysfunction. But we call it a diagnosis. That's your real diagnosis there. You'll probably not see that written on your patient's charts, though. That's how it should be written. And we find that a high hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, high blood fat after a meal leads to high blood pressure and vessel walls that aren't permeable. Triggering of acute inflammation. So when I see acute inflammation, I start looking for plaque. And then I have oxidative stress because the inflammation of that vessel wall is an oxidizing agent, and so we get more plaque. Here's the one we're looking at. Hypercoagulability. Why are so many people on Plavix? And they keep making these drugs, which is not a good sign. It's because people are dealing with hyperglycemia post-med. Now, the question is this person a diabetic? Wouldn't have to be at all. In fact, you want to know what normal is? 2 hours after you eat a meal, if you're at 140 or less, we're going to still tell you you're normal. I hope your blood sugar never goes over 140, no matter what you do and no matter what you eat. At 160, you start dumping sugar out into the kidneys, and then when they check your urine, you get a positive for your glucose. By the way, that's how much the body likes you. It tries to not allow you to get to 300 blood sugar levels because you're pumping it out. Sympathetic hyperactivity. Why does the body do sympathetic, as part of your nervous system, hyperactivity? It's trying to survive, folks. Some people interpret that as better energy. I interpret it as a desperate attempt of my body to try to live. Post-meal, increase in triglycerides, very low density lipoprotein, remnants, HDL clearance. Now, what do we mean here in production of the LDL? That means that we're getting rid of the good guys, getting cleared out, and we're keeping more of the bad guy around. Not a good state to be in. This is after you've eaten at McDonald's. This is after you've had your chocolate eclair. This is, and hopefully, no banana split. Postprandial lipemia. Maybe we need to get up and jump up and down 3 times. Everybody who isn't sleeping, stand up. All right, good. Thank you. Okay, we got to get this lipemia out of our system. Increases levels of triglyceride and remnant lipoproteins. If you look at postprandial change in the plasma, what do you have? Down here, we've got lipid levels, and up here, we've got triglycerides, and this is cholesterol. So you can see that both triglycerides as well as cholesterol go up after your meal, after eating obviously an oral fat load. You're eating a high-fat meal. So it definitely goes up, so you don't feel groggy after you eat just because you feel groggy. You feel groggy after you eat because you have lack of oxygen to your brain. So, we may have to walk around the block before we get done this lecture. Fat is toxic. It's not just spare fuel. It doesn't do you any favors. It works against you. I think we'll skip some of those postprandial. Well, this brings up a good point. Is this in diabetic? The postprandial state, this is in type 2 diabetics, but can affect all of us. You can spend over 12 hours a day in this state. So when you eat breakfast, you get yourself in a postprandial state. You're not out of that state until you eat lunch, and you're not out of that state until you eat supper, and you may start getting out of it somewhere at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So people who aren't diabetic, if I eat a lot of sugar for breakfast, my sugar goes up. It won't be down correctly until I hit noon, and then it still won't be all the way down. I eat another high sugar meal. So throughout the day, I can have a diabetic type blood sugar level without, quote, being diabetic. I don't buy it. You see, when you go to the doctor and he does a fasting blood sugar level, if you can't pass that, we're in big trouble, because that is the lowest bar you can set for not being a diabetic. I've given you 12 hours off. I've given you a 12-hour fast. I've given you every possible chance to get your sugar in a normal realm. And if you can't do it in 12 hours, people say, well, I was so close. I'm going, no, sir, you aren't even anywhere near close. And the standard runs up to 100. Well, some labs are 99, some labs are 106. I think I saw one up to 120, and I'm going, what are you doing for normal blood sugars? Healthy blood sugar is 70 to 85. That's the range you like to live in and be in. Fasting, fire in the heart. Foods that promote inflammatory disease. Here's where we want to spend our time. Foods that are high in saturated fat content, such as animal products and dairy products, promote inflammation. Animal protein promotes inflammation in the body. This is why animal protein with no cholesterol in it, they remove the cholesterol, causes you to produce more cholesterol at the liver level. And you go, wait a minute, I can eat not a drop of cholesterol, but if I eat animal protein, my cholesterol level goes up. That's what I'm telling you. In fact, you'll get a greater response in raising your cholesterol than if you ate the cholesterol. So then you see these research projects that come out saying, if you eat 3 eggs a day, it'll bring your cholesterol this. If you eat 6 eggs a day, it won't raise it over what 3 does. So therefore, it's safe to eat all the eggs you want. Well, bad conclusion. The conclusion should be you've already saturated as much cholesterol as you can take in with 3, so you could take in the whole rest of the dozen and it wouldn't be a problem that day. So see, it's a totally erroneous way of approaching it. Foods high, one more thing. Do you want to know the highest, not animal, this would be in the vegetable area, the highest saturated fat containing vegetable fat that contains the highest level of saturated fat? Any guesses? What's that? Coconut oil. And look what's gotten all the press lately. I smile because when I was at Loma Linda 40 years ago, we were telling people, stay away from coconut oil. That was when the non-dairy creamers came out. We're getting off dairy, now you can have palm oil and coconut oil. No, you don't. We're probably making it worse. Now it's made its cycle again. I'd have to wait till it goes away. I hope people catch on. We don't lose too many people who are going to die from it. I know that coconut oil is in the tropics mostly. And I do believe that God put saturated fat in the coconut because the higher the temperature, the more vulnerable the polyunsaturated fats are. They oxidize a lot quicker. This is why when you squeeze the olive and you've got nice olive oil on your shelf, it will go rancid quicker than lard will. And maybe you had the grandmother who had the tub of lard next to her old cook stove. And she would scoop in there and make your cookies, and scoop in there and make your Johnny bread, and scoop in there and make your cornbread. And that lard would be by the cook stove all winter long, and it could be 90, 100 degrees the whole time. It would make your walnuts and other nuts go rancid in a big hurry. But I believe that God put saturated fats in the coconut because He also put it in the tropics. And that fat could tolerate higher heat without going rancid. But God did not make coconut oil. God made coconuts. So if you have a real hankering that you have to have coconut, eat the whole food, and I don't think it's going to be a major problem. Foods high in omega-6 fat content and low in omega-3, such as partially hydrogenated oils, margarine, oils from corn, cottonseed, safflower, sesame, and sunflower. The reason they say that is that partially hydrogenated, these oils are going to be what they call polyunsaturated. Foods high in glycemic loads such as bagels, instant rice, and white pasta. What's the glycemic load? Glycemic load says what you eat, how fast it goes into your bloodstream affects your insulin response. So indirectly what they're saying here is the higher the insulin response, the more inflammatory disease. What did I do? Go ahead.
So the oils, if you cook in oils, or should you even cook in oils, but is coconut oil better to cook in than olive oil, or are you saying that coconut oil is not good?
I'm saying coconut oil is not good, but to qualify your question, you've got a really good point, and we call it smoke point on oils.
What's the question?
He was saying if you're going to cook, and you're going to cook with coconut oil because it can tolerate the heat before it goes rancid and change the chemistry of it, then it would make sense, good logic, that coconut oil would be better to cook with than olive oil. That's good logic. The problem is that the coconut oil has its own problems even if it isn't cooked. But from a heat standpoint, it will tolerate the heat better and have less chemical changes. The real issue is that for you that are healthy, the less refined diet you eat, the better. It's that simple. Now, if you're not diabetic, and you don't have heart disease, you don't have cancer, and all these people that I treat, that's what I'm saying. I don't know whether small amounts of refined fats would be enough to cause a problem when you're 70. I don't know that yet. I'm on the other side of the fence. People come to me because they've got a coronary artery disease and we're trying to reverse it. And it is almost always more difficult to change a disease process than to get the disease. That's where I'm at. So I want you to know my bias. My bias is I'm working on people who are sick, who have spent 40 years messing themselves up. And I'm trying to go, hey, it's time to come back and you can get return. Yes, ma'am. What's wrong with vinegar?
Bagels.
Oh, bagels are refined.
Well, why does it say they are high in
Because it's sugar.
What am I messing up here?
Bagels are like bread.
Foods with high glycemic load. Glycemic index was the first one they came out with. They would test an individual food and see how much it raised your blood sugar. So white sugar was always at the top of the list, and probably pinto beans was the lowest. Oh, white bread, yeah. Bagels, I mean, if you had a 100% whole wheat bagel, you probably wouldn't qualify to be on that chart. Now, glycemic load isn't just one food. When we say glycemic load, we put all the foods, and we should call it glycemic meal is what we should look. Because when you eat your beans, even with your white rice, it will have less impact in going into the bloodstream than white rice alone, because you've got a combination. Now, when it comes to diabetics, we always like to feed them a high fiber diet, because the fiber actually slows down and inhibits how fast the glucose can go in the bloodstream. So one of the first rules you always give a diabetic is, I want you to eat 60 grams of fiber a day. You don't tell them it's good for them, bad for them, whatever. You just say, get your chart and eat the foods to make up 60. And guess what? They can't choose meat. They won't get their fiber in. They can't choose eating fried chicken. They won't get their fiber in. So in a nice way, you say, I'm turning you into a vegetarian without telling you. So they come back in, they say, I ate the whole box of bran. You go, well, that blew that one out. You know, that's not the goal. We want natural fiber. What are you going to say?
No, I was going to say, so in order for them to reach the quantity of what you want them to have,
They've got to get that 2 cups of cabbage in. It cures them every time. Yeah.
But brown rice is definitely going to have more fiber than that instant white rice.
Very much so. Because you've got the bran as a buffer to slow it down so you have less glycemic load.
So the
Now,
bottom line is the less processed, the better.
always.
The less processed, the better.
But some people, some diabetics, are more sensitive to different foods than others, and that's what we call the fine-tuning. You can give one diabetic brown rice, and they do awesome. You give another diabetic brown rice, and they'll get a sugar spike, and you go, man, I don't get it. I'm going, no, we're not created equal. Some people can eat their corn and have no problem. The other diabetic eats corn, they go, oh, that gets me. I'm going, I understand, we're down to fine-tuning now. I've given you the big picture. I'm telling you what you should be able to do. You're going to have to watch yourself. And they'll find out, yeah, I can tolerate this. And then they'll come back and tell me, I can drink carrot juice and it doesn't bother me too bad. I'm going, that sure doesn't make sense. Or they'll come back in and they'll say something like that. So we are not created equal. But see, that's the fine-tuning in the program, not the major. Okay, where are we at? Foods that promote inflammation, foods that are highly allergic potential. Dairy is your number one food known to man, known to children mostly. Anyway, dairy is your number one. Wheat happens to be your number two. Peanuts, citrus, those things fall. And when I say number three, one would be about, dairy would be about 60%, wheat about 20%. So all the rest of the allergies fall in the other 20%. And here they're listing wheat and eggs. Once again, animal protein, and wheat, obviously, vegetable protein or on the vegetable side of the equation. Inflammatory foods can increase the promotion of inflammatory mediators, meaning that you can have a food that causes an immune response, and the immune response, this is your child with a peanut allergy. Peanuts technically are not the problem, but peanuts evoke a response in the immune system, which now becomes your problem. And an out-of-control immune system, when it comes to your throat, can cause it to excrete water, to swell, to cramp, to come down, and the child's sitting there going, we got an emergency on our hands. And that's where you all need to learn to be able to do an emergency tracheotomy.
What was that again?
You always have to be prepared to save someone's life. Whether you've got a pocket knife, a razor blade, and a Bic pen, you got to save someone's life. The most helpless thing you can do is watch a person die in front of you. You see this notch down here right at the top? That's where you want to go.
I would pass that.
That's okay. As long as you got the thing in first so they can breathe, you can go ahead and pass out. Believe me, your adrenaline will take over and you may pass out after you get the job done. I'm not trying to be an emergency room physician. I'm just telling you that one simple technique can save a life. Okay, think of this. Remember people where they have the scar for the trach that they had at the hospital? You've never seen it? Well, look around.
Yeah, Brother Frank's got one.
Right here. Look how low it is. It's not up here in the vocal cords. You're not trying to mess someone's voice up for the rest of their life. Get right down here and go in. And there's no major blood supply, so you're not going through a major artery. Why am I telling you all this? I'm scaring you half to death. Well, if you've ever had a child, or if you plan to have a child, or if you have a grandchild and they're at your house, you'll be thankful. I've never had to do it on either of my children. The closest I got was my daughter, who swallowed a penny, and I had to put her in my arms and pop her good, and the penny came flying out, and that was, thank you. We're glad it's done. How did I get there? Allergic reactions are going to get more and more common as the body deteriorates and the immune system gets misused and abused. That's the bottom line. These foods inflammatory can increase, foods with high allergy potential may also increase intestinal permeability. I think this is what we call leaky gut syndrome. This is probably more critical than anything else. When you have these allergy-type foods that inflame the bowel wall, you actually tear up the tissue to the point where instead of having your amino acids break down into individual amino acids and absorb in the bloodstream as an amino acid, you're absorbing a chain of them now, 10, 12, 15 long. In other words, you're ingesting a protein molecule now, not just an amino acid. And when the body sees that protein come in, it goes, we got problems here. This is a foreign invader. And you can make antibodies against protein. What do you think the prion diseases are? You know, the people that ate brains and stuff in way over in fuzzy wuzzy land or whatever, they ate brains and they called it kuru. It's a prion that is not an actual enough to be a complete protein. It is a protein that has the ability to cause this response in the body. Unfortunately, it causes major brain inflammation, and they say these brains look like Swiss cheese. What's that? Similar. Encephalopathy, yeah. Spongiform, obviously full of holes. Yeah, same thing. So there are toxins to the brain that have these enormous effects. What I'm seeing in my patients is I'm seeing minor effects. And I think even if I did an MRI and all the stuff on the brain, I wouldn't find anything from what we call gross anatomy, what you can just, eyeballing the brain, I don't think I'd find anything. I'm dealing with it at a molecular level. And if I have a breakthrough, I'll be glad to let you know, because you sit there and going, why is this 40-year-old young man just not making it? And I don't believe he's a bum and wants to get out of work or needs a psychiatrist. And by the way, it's not always easy to tell, I will admit, but the point is that I've always had much better understanding between me and my patients when I trust them, that they're telling me what they think. I also will be honest enough to tell them that they're fooling themselves if I perceive that. But I've always found it better to believe them and work from that than to tell them that they need a shrink and it's all in their head. I might tell them it's all in their head anyway because it's true. That's where pain is, it's going to be that way. Anti-inflammatory foods. Foods that are high in omega-3 fats, such as flaxseed and walnuts. Contrary to popular belief, salmon may have a lot of omega-3 fats in them, but salmon is not anti-inflammatory. If you want to find out the truth about salmon, you'll find out that the initial research was flawed. Everything we've been doing about omega-3 fats from salmon is bogus, and Dr. Michael Greger wrote an incredible article and showed the research that that's all bogus. The first thing is, the average lifespan for an Eskimo is 43 years. So I don't like their track record to start with. How about you? Most of us are over 43. The second thing is, it was built on bogus research. They did not find the results they would have. So if you're going to use an omega-3 fat, if you want to, please take this course right here. But better than that, why don't we stop the problem as compared to solve it by eating these foods. Why don't you cut the inflammation from day one so you don't have to eat all these anti-inflammatories? If you're not eating something wrong to start with, why do you have to worry about flaxseed?
What about chia? Chia seed.
Good choice. Both are good choice. Foods high in antioxidants such as vegetables, citrus, cherries. Here's your garlic, ma'am. Onion and tea. Now, I will reserve the right to not give you caffeine. And green tea, some of it's decaffeinated. There are beneficial qualities in green tea, but I'm not willing to drink the caffeine to get the beneficial. Yes, ma'am. It's excellent. It's a bit strong on the cleansing end. In other words, if you drink 4 ounces of pomegranate for 3 or 4 weeks, you may start to wonder why you smell so bad in the urine end of things and someone going, what is wrong with me? It just means you may can detoxify a little bit too quick, but it is that powerful, yeah. Excellent choice too. Spices such as ginger, garlic, rosemary, turmeric, oregano, and we got good old cayenne down here. These are anti-inflammatory foods. They have a low glycemic index. They don't cause your insulin to go up, because if foods cause the insulin to go up, it is automatically an inflammatory food. Donuts are always going to be an inflammatory food no matter how you cook them, how you bake them, whether you deep fry them or not. It's not just the fats in them. Mediterranean diet, rich in omega-3 fats and beta. See, here's my problem. I think I can prove that a plant-based, whole food, vegan diet will beat out this Mediterranean diet hands down. I have no doubt in my mind. I just don't have the research that when I make a presentation. So I don't mind telling you that this is not the best. Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn are way ahead of this. And by the way, this diet is so close to the American Heart Association diet that I can't even tell you that this is going to do a great job on cleaning up your arteries. Some research says it's better. They always say that olive oil prevents heart disease. I'm going, okay, what are you saying? And what should be more accurately said is that olive oil only causes 50% of the heart diseases compared to lard. That's what really should be said. Because those people that use more olive oil have less cardiovascular disease. But until they have no cardiovascular disease, will I call it prevented? And that's just not true. Low glycemic index? Glycemic has to do with sugar. When you say low sugar index, what you're talking about there is the foods that you're eating doesn't raise your blood sugar too high. Because if you raise your blood sugar high, then you have to have insulin come out here to correct it. And insulin's hard on the vessel wall. Yes, it's necessary. We need it. But it's not what you want. So the top one, the one that they rate at 100 on this glycemic scale, is white sugar. You would expect that one. But sometimes you won't get what you expect. White potatoes are up there pretty high. But what they don't tell me is, did they eat the skins with it or not? I don't know. On the other hand, we talked about glycemic load, like here, and that is when we ate the whole meal. So I may have eaten one food from that meal that would raise my blood sugar more, and then I ate some cabbage, which would shove it back down again. So at the end of the meal, where do I stand? That's glycemic load. How much was the whole meal? Polyunsaturated fats and inflammation. This is what demonstrates and why I say what I do about oils. Polyunsaturated fats, like corn oil, for example, coronary heart disease, major depression, aging, and cancer characterized by an increased level of interleukin-1, a pro-inflammatory cytokine. Now, interleukin-1 is going to be increased with these polyunsaturated fats. So it's a dose relationship. The more you eat, the more problem we have. Therefore, arthritis, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, lupus erythematosus are autoimmune disease characterized by a high level of interleukin-1 and pro-inflammatory leukotrienes, LTB, produced by omega-6 fats. So what's the take-home story? You don't have to avoid all omega-6 fats. You're going to get some omega-6 fats when you eat your corn on the cob. You're going to get your omega-3 fats. But when you eat the whole food, you're going to get them in the balance you're supposed to. Omega-3 and plant sterols. Plant sterols are bioflavonoids that tend to improve your vessel wall health. Dietary intervention, plant steroids reduce several markers of inflammatory. So when the markers are decreased, then I shouldn't have the risk factors. So I'm a marker person. If I see a marker, I'm saying, where's the fire? But you can have a marker and still may have a normal blood cholesterol level. So I'll go with the marker, because the marker is telling me not what's floating in the bloodstream, but how my cells are responding to that. It's like when you do thyroid testing, okay? You do a TSH test, thyroid stimulating hormone. That's not even a thyroid hormone. That's made by the pituitary gland. So why am I going to take the pituitary gland's word for it? Because I think it's smarter than I am. So I got a pituitary gland that's monitoring my thyroid, and it says your thyroid's messing up. I'll say, I'll take your word for it. Because it knows the chemistry, and it is, well, I'll consider it part of the brain. C-reactive protein. Okay, these are the markers with omega-3 fats and plant sterols. Now, how do you get omega-3 fats with plant sterols? You can't use flax oil. You have to use flax seed, because flax oil has got the lignans and the plant steroids taken out, and they make it into an oil. You really want those lignans, and some even get fancy and say, this is a high lignin oil. I go, I don't care, give me the whole seed. C-reactive protein, one of our biomarkers for inflammation, was reduced by almost 40%. I'll list them up. Tumor necrosis factor alpha reduced by 10%. Now, necrosis means dead tissue. So here we've got a tumor necrosis factor, highly inflammatory, reduced, interleukin-6 reduced, and overall cardiovascular disease reduced by 22%. Pretty impressive. Balance of omega-6s and omega-3s. A balanced intake of omega-6 and omega-3 acid is anti-inflammatory, against inflammation. Overconsumption of omega-6 in relation to omega-3 leads to inflammation. So here's the ratio. Most appropriate ratio, omega-6 to omega-3 is approximately 4:1. Folks, it is so easy to get your omega-6s, you don't have to try. Don't even worry about trying to get omega-6s. That's why we keep pushing omega-3s. And the reason we push flax so much is so that I know if you take 2 tablespoons of flax a day and you're on a decent diet, I don't have to worry about this ratio at all. It's that simple. So instead of going around and figuring all your milligrams, simplify it, get out your flaxseed. At my household, I don't know where I'm going to find it. Well, I do know where I'm going to find it, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's in pancakes, and sometimes it's in this, and sometimes it's in that. Sometimes it's in cereal. Definitely, I'm seeing my wife put more in cooked cereal because I see the seeds. What's that? Do an experiment for me. Take a teaspoon of flax seed. Add enough water to cover it by about 1/4 of an inch and let it sit there overnight. Amazing. Something's coming out of that hard seed. I still think it's best to grind it. Chia, on the other hand, they're a lot easier to digest. You can crunch. The flax seed seems to be a lot more resistant. And you call it tapioca, huh?
So did you say it's better to grind it, or?
You will get more benefit from your flax if you grind it as far as absorbing the good nutrients. Flax is a little more resistant. What's coming out of the flax, I tell people to soak it overnight. What's coming out of the flax is mostly something that's water soluble. It almost turns into a gel. On the other hand, when you put it in water, it's not going to take care of the fat soluble part of that compound because that's going to have to be taken out when you grind it, then you can digest it. And that's why you have bile from your liver, because that's what basically gets in there and makes the fats water soluble. Your body is a water soluble machine mostly. We're not oil soluble, but we deal with oils by using our bile to help to digest the fats, and we've got lipases from the pancreas, and that all helps to break it down. In other words, the first picture I started with, where they had the blood, the tube of blood, that lipemic, that much fat in the blood, that should never be there for any reason unless we got major disease. That should never happen to any of you.
You're saying 2 tablespoons of chia or flaxseed?
Yeah.
Tablespoons.
Tablespoons.
A lot. Yeah, and it makes things slimy. Well,
No excuses. Remember my first lecture this morning.
I can't put it in your green.
I'll tell you what. After you make Neil Nedley's brain bars, you're going to find. Now she's making cookies. See what I mean? We just start making cookies, and people will eat their flaxseed.
That ratio that says 4 to 1, that means it says an appropriate ratio is 4 times as much.
They are saying an anti-inflammatory ratio. If you want to knock out the negative effect of the 6s, you have to have no more than 4 parts of them to 1 part of the 3s.
Okay.
So you don't try to get the 6.
No, folks, forget it. I mean, the 6 you get so much of, you're trying to get rid of it.
What do you get it
Everything, from walnuts to almonds to all that. But you get more 3s. The reason flax is on the scene is because flax is probably one of the highest omega-3 fat-containing things. But celery has.
putting it in stuff, but it can't be all of it at one time in one spot.
That's okay. I'm sure you're going to figure it out, Gail. It's not a problem. And it won't be slimy. And it may even be the next tomato pie that I eat, for all I know. You'll hide it somewhere where people won't know it. Isn't that what wives do? They hide stuff in food so they try to make their husbands healthier, right? And what he doesn't know won't hurt him, right? Okay. Anti-inflammatory fruits and vegetables. This is an easy one. The only time a vegetable or fruit in its whole state is going to be inflammatory is if there's something toxic on it or it's grown in a very toxic environment. Beyond that, this is a real easy one. High fruit, vegetable intake, has been shown to be associated with a low level of inflammation, obviously. It's fruit and vegetables in general are going to be anti-inflammatory for a few reasons. Number one, they've got the right chemistry. Number two, they're automatically low in fats to start with. Number three, they're usually high in magnesium. And you start going through the whole list. Fruits and vegetable intake has been shown to be inversely related to oxidative stress and inflammation in type 2 diabetics. Inversely, which means the more vegetables I eat, the less stress, oxidative stress I have. The less I eat this way. So my wife read the report that you need 5 fruits and vegetables a day. So she believes I need 5 fruits and 5 vegetables a day. But the report didn't say 10. So you see where I get mine. So we're well covered. Cherries. Cherries contain compounds that inhibit enzymes, cyclooxygenase, COX-1 and 2, the targets of anti-inflammatory drugs. When you have good cherries to eat, what are you doing with drugs? And this year, I don't see how you could have missed out. We got some of the best, most economical cherries this year that were awesome. And I don't even live in Washington State. But when you get good Rainier cherries, you've got something. Except by the time they get to us, they're not like buying them out there. So if you're ever in Washington State in, let's see, July, get some Rainier cherries. They're whitish with a little blush of pink on it. They're awesome. Studies on healthy men and women consuming 280 grams a day of Bing cherries for 28 days showed a reduced serum CRP, C-reactive protein, of 25%. And here's an interesting one. an increase of nitric oxide by 18%. Nitric oxide is the chemical that dilates your blood vessels. So I'm going to decrease inflammation and decrease your blood pressure and dilate your vessels. All for a good excuse to eat approximately, 454 grams is a pound. So what's that? That's going to be about 2/3, yeah. Reduced serum. I'm sorry, I am wrong. I am reading it wrong. I am sorry, thank you. The reduced CRP, you also, in the nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is still a vasodilator, that is correct, but it must have reduced it because of the inflammation, as best I can tell you. But we can still get our Bing cherries. Garlic has been used as a medicinal plant since ancient times. Researchers have shown that garlic may promote an anti-inflammatory environment by cytokine modulation that leads to overall inhibition of necrosis factor kappa B, I believe that is. So we got the garlic in. Necrosis factor kappa B is a central transcription factor, an active immune and central regulator of pro-inflammatory gene expression. Pro-inflammatory gene expression means that you have genes that can turn on or turn off. Some genes are going to increase the inflammatory response, and some are going to suppress it. We call this epigenetics. We all have the genes, but what turns them on and what turns them off is the real question here. And most of the factors are going to be dietary. Turmeric, we'll spend a few more moments on that. Curcumin, the Latin name is Curcumin longus. The name curcumin usually indicates now when people say that they're talking about a particular chemical in the turmeric. Dr. Greger's research showed that just plain old turmeric, ground up powdered root turmeric, is more effective than these fancy curcuminoids and extracts and all the stuff they make. The reason I believe is because I believe they've extracted something, or the plant has some synergistic effect that works better if you leave it alone.
Are you saying that if man messes with something, it becomes worse than better usually?
We have a pharmaceutical mindset. That's our problem. And so many people say, how many milligrams? And I'm tempted to say, it doesn't make a bit of difference. How many milligrams of broccoli did you have for lunch? Because we have this pharmaceutical mindset. We want to know how many milligrams in the capsule. And so I'm saying, well, mine are about 600. And you want me to take 6 a day? That's 3,600. I said, yeah, I'm trying to kill you. No, I don't. 3,600 milligrams of anything sounds like it's an elephant dose. But if I gave you broccoli for lunch, you wouldn't be any argument. Herbs and supplements just have specific nutrients and specific concentrations, and that's why we do it. So whether you get an extra turmeric capsule or one less a day, probably not a big deal. But we're pharmaceutical, our mindset. Curcumin, yellow or orange spice from Asia, main ingredient in curry. Laboratory animal research demonstrate anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer properties of turmeric and its constituent curcumin. How do you like this? nationalinstituteofhealth.gov. Even our government is telling the doctors they need to use this. Researchers tested turmeric extracts on animal models and found evidence of anti-arthritic. I don't need animals anymore, just talk to my patients. They found curcuminoid extract, that's what I'm talking about here, this is the active ingredient, or supposedly, inhibits the transcription factor for the necrosis factor, KB, from being activated in the joint. Now, when you're dealing with transcription factor, you're at the genetic level for transmitting these or making these things. Typical dose, therapeutically, is 400 milligrams twice a day. Now, they need to clear that up because 400 milligrams twice a day is 800 milligrams a day. And I just told you that my therapeutic dose is 3,600. It's not that I'm wrong and they're right, it's that they're dealing with this ingredient here, I believe. And what I give is the whole thing. That's why we use that. 6. But then I'll tell you something. First of all, I can't hurt you with it. Secondarily, if you do that for 3 months and cut back to 3, and the knees are still good, I'll tell you you're doing good. But remember, preventive medicine has to do with me taking care of your heart and your knees and everything else in your body. So, you're doing 4. Well, you have to let me know how you're doing. Inflammation in Alzheimer's disease patients is characterized by increased cytokines and activate microglia. What is causing those weird tangles that I didn't take time to look at this morning in the Alzheimer person's brain? What is causing a change to that brain cell function? I happen to believe it's this right here. It's an inflammatory response to a few things. The research that I'm studying right now on Alzheimer's disease, it's not one single factor. It's not just those blocked up vessels I showed you with the circle Willis this morning. It's environmental toxins. It's diet. Environmental toxins would include smoking and alcohol. It's even down to where they find that some people have inflammation of the brain due to mold toxicities, living in a moldy house. You start going through this whole thing. You keep going on. We spent time on drugs that affect the brain and brain function. We talked about statin drugs being a potential cause for a decrease in cholesterol in the brain. So the researchers that are doing the best, and when I say do the best, we've got researchers now that are demonstrating close to 100% of their patients that come to them with cognitive decline are getting improvement. There's no drug that comes close to that. There is no medication. There's no herb that comes close to that. And these researchers are using a multifaceted approach. Guess what one of them is? A plant-based diet. Guess what another one is? Obviously checking their environment. Another one is you have to exercise. And I'm not sure whether I made this one up or not, but I would definitely want to put fasting on the list. I have a lady right now I'm treating, and she knows she has cognitive decline. There's no doubt about it. She's come to me. I picked it up a while ago, but you hate to accuse people of this. I think you're losing your marbles. That's not the best way to influence your patients. But when they start saying, I think I have a problem, if they think they have a problem, don't ignore it. So what I had her do, this last time around, I gave her homework and told her the whys and etc. She's got a lot to work on. But I said, I want you to do a 3-day fast. She called me up after her 3-day fast and says, I feel awesome. And she wasn't just telling me that she was ready to go walk 5 miles. She was starting to get clarity. I says, I want to prove to you that if you start taking care of your mind, that your mind can clear up. I said, and fasting is the fastest way to do that. I want to see what you got. And she said, okay. Told me about starved her, but she's okay. She goes, it was really getting, the 3rd day was really rough. Yes, ma'am.
So in your study of this, and you see the deterioration of the Alzheimer's brain, have you been able to find a way, a pathway back to kind of regenerate that brain?
I don't have that information yet. I happen to believe brain cells are regenerated. But I don't know, in looking at some of the brains and pictures that I show, I don't know what you can get back. On the outside, not having the scan picture to look at, on the outside, there are people who are getting better cognitive function. They're getting better memory. They're getting more aware. So either that means what I got left is more active, or we're actually getting some healing. Now, obviously, the time to treat that is with our lifestyle all the time. The second best time to treat it is if we notice anything. And we should not accept that just because I'm 10 years older that I'm supposed to lose 10 more marbles. See, we accept it because guess what? What if your memory is better than everybody else in the room? You think you're pretty good. But if everybody else in the room has lost their mind, you're not good at all. But see, we always compare ourselves. Well, I'm doing better than the rest of my family. Aunt Lucy's the really wacky one, and we're doing all good compared to her. Well, no. Pick a high standards. saying, am I sharp? How is my memory? Then people come to me and say, I can't memorize my Bible anymore. I say, well, keep trying. At least it keeps the brain clean. You know, keep putting good stuff in. And then I think God's in charge of it all. Pray. Ask God. I need a brain cure. I don't want a brain transplant, but I like a brain cure. So I'm still convinced that God wants to heal us. I'm still convinced of that. Because there's only one way that God can communicate to us, and that's through an intact brain. So may God help us. And he knows that better than I do, and if he loses that avenue, what has he got? And he's here to save his children.
Quick question, if you're fasting, if you decide to fast 1 day a week, how often do you do a 3-day fast? Once a quarter?
I'm sorry, I'm missing the point. 1 day a week would be 1 day a week.
And then, in addition to that, how often, if you're doing that, how often would you do the 3-day fast? Do it once a quarter?
I'm still working on that. But when I get this patient back, I'll see how she did. What I'm more concerned about is not her 3 days. What I'm concerned about is how fast did she perceive that she lost, or has she lost anything in her perception? Remember, I'm using her perception. I'm not giving her a written test and all this stuff. I'm using her perception because she was willing to open up to me about her perception. So the first thing you want to take care of is I want her to know she's doing better. I kind of don't even care about the test, honestly. I want her to know she's doing better because I think she's willing to be honest with me. And so I want her doing better. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do a 3-day fast once a month. I'm not sure what it's going to take. But a 3-day fast is a cheap price to pay for having quality of life. The reason I tell people to start with a 1-day water fast is because it is actually quite easy. It sounds more threatening than what it is. Well, it's because you've convinced yourself because you've done it. So it's not that bad. But if you've never done it, you start going, you know, hey, that's you. That's the benefit. Seriously, you can eat breakfast this morning and then eat breakfast tomorrow morning. And I've never had one of my patients starve yet. So logically in your own brain, you're going to go, well, I'll give you an example. Maybe some of you have done this already. When you switched from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day, what was your biggest psychological hurdle? Oh, I would overeat. I'm not going to get another meal for whenever, and I would be miserable. I'm going, no, I gotta deal with what's going on in my head. I'm not going to starve. I've never starved at night before. I don't think I'm going to starve. So we would eat early. And when I'd go off to work, we'd eat at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd eat about 12:30. But see, it's a matter of conditioning yourself. Hydration helps a big deal. Not having a high-stress day helps a lot. If I was out there digging a ditch, I probably wouldn't pick that day. I'd pick an office day or a travel day or whatever day. So pick your, quote, poison. Pick your day the best. What's that? No, I wouldn't recommend that. Because I'd recommend that puts yourself in a hypercoag. The only time I'd do that is if I had no water.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
She said, have you ever done a dry fast? No water. I said, I don't recommend that because when you dry fast, you're automatically dehydrating the bloodstream and you're setting yourself up for clots. And I just wouldn't recommend that. The only time I'll dry fast is if you got me in a desert and I can't drink water. I wouldn't recommend that for any of us. Hydrate, 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 please. Because think of it this. Your body is putting off toxins all the time. You want to be able to clean it out. There's no value in giving the kidney less water. Yes?
Speaking of hydration, and I'm just thinking about caffeine, has there been shown any correlation, do you believe there is any, with the incredible increase in caffeine that I've seen in my generation, to Alzheimer's? Is there maybe something there?
The correlation came from the Adventist Health Study, and it called non-water drinks. It was applying to cardiovascular disease. Those people who drink more than 2 cups of non-water, which is coffee, tea, Coke, and orange juice, those people that drink more than 2 cups of that a day have significant increase in cardiovascular disease. Now, they put juice in there. See, I got big questions. I'm going, how much? How frequent? How many of your populations? What were they drinking? Et cetera, et cetera. So, but in general, this block over here. Now, when the people drank more than 5 glasses of water versus those who drank less than 5 glasses of water, that was another big gap in cardiovascular. So they found out that water versus non-water drinkers, and then non-water beverages was another gap. The more non-water beverages you drink, the more cardiovascular disease, basically.
And I was wondering, because isn't a high percentage of our brain water too? Or am I wrong there?
And what's this now?
Isn't a high percentage of our brain water? And I know caffeinated drinks tend to dehydrate, don't they?
Caffeine tends to be a dehydrator because it's a response in the kidney tubules. Think of it this way. If something makes you urinate excessively, you should say, this is a poison. Why does your nose run? Your body's trying to get rid of something. So we take an antihistamine. Duh. Won't we let the body do its job? You get diarrhea. You go to the emergency room, they give you a Lamodal or Imodium. I'm going, wait a minute, maybe you're supposed to have diarrhea. They look at me like I've got 3 heads. I mean, wait a minute. My child's got a fever. Do something, doc. I'm saying, how high is it? Oh, it's 102.8. Keep them comfortable. Hydrate them. If you're worried about it tonight, put their feet in hot water. Have them just sit on the counter and just put their feet in hot water. They can last up to a half hour. If they break a sweat behind the neck, you've broken the fever. Put dear Teddy to bed, and he'll be fine. No. Where's the acetaminophen? I got to go to the pediatrician. We got to break this fever. Why? See, we never ask the right questions. Oh, by the way, put them on an antibiotic too, just in case they have an infection.
But Alzheimer's is nothing that you're aware of then with caffeine?
Caffeine and Alzheimer's, the only factor would be there is because the brain doesn't like caffeine because of the adrenaline stimulation. What that does as far as the process of the actual Alzheimer's deterioration of the brain, I would have to do some more homework. Not yet. I suspect it.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. It would make, in other words, if I find something, I expect it to read that caffeine is a factor in progression of the disease, not working for it.
Because I mean, just in my lifetime, I've seen a huge increase. I mean, people have always drank coffee, but not like they do today. People drink these, power whatever that, are give them a false high. And
Yeah, they're getting some pretty heavy caffeine.
more Alzheimer's today than we did. And I know there's a lot of
5-hour energy is 5-hour caffeine.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you just go back to your last screen for 1 second? Thank you. That's all.
By the way, being in Costa Rica and going to their open market in San Jose, by the way, I talk about Costa Rica, that's where I go to get my dental work done, because it's a whole lot more reasonable, number one. Number two, when I'm there, I'm in enough pain that it's not a vacation, okay? Not always, so we do take a few days off, but I want you to think I'm just not goofing off, okay? But, yeah, the pain from the dental, yeah, not just being in Costa Rica, yeah. But when you can get 5 mangoes for $1 down there, I'm doing pretty good for a while, My wife would be on the street and she would be out there 5 for $5, and she's talking about 500 colones, which is basically about $1, and she's getting 5 mangoes. She's got a bargainer before we go home, anyway. But in the open market, which you may not want to buy there because it's not near as hygienic as your stores here, but you should see the turmeric. All the different colors from reddish all the way through to beautiful yellow. That's what you're seeing in this pot, these herbs up here. That's probably a mixture for curry there. But turmeric is a whole variation of colors. And so when I buy turmeric, I get different colors going along. It doesn't mean one time I've got the real thing and one time it's not. It's where it's grown, it's the soil it's grown in, it may be maturity of the plant. I don't know what all goes into it.
So the darker the color doesn't mean richer the...
No. No, color of herb doesn't always indicate strength or potency. And if you buy from a reputable herb company, they run it through a gas chromatograph, which means it's got the right chemicals at the right concentration, and this means it's the right herb. Otherwise, for me, I look at color, I look at taste, and I look at smell, and none of those are accurate for a good identification. So I like their science approach, and check it out. Okay, where are we at here? Research has found that both high and low doses of curcumin significantly lower oxidized proteins. So if this is lowering oxidized proteins, then this has to be an antioxidant. An interleukin-1 beta pro-inflammatory cytokine, a cell hormone here, elevated in the brains of Alzheimer transgenic mice. Poor mice. What? Transgenic? I won't go into that subject unless you want me to. I am saying that was a study done on mice, and if it works on the same chemicals that I have, I expect it to work in humans. So you're saying the brain of a mouse is hard to evaluate? That's true. They're not very large. Ginger belongs in the same botanical family as turmeric and cardamom. Anti-inflammatory agent used for centuries. Ginger inhibits prostaglandin biosynthesis. Prostaglandins is what mediates pain in your body. Prostaglandins cause inflammatory response. So they're saying that this reduces or inhibits that. Ginger also inhibits induction of several genes involving inflammatory response. 261 people with osteoarthritis of the knee, those have received a ginger extract twice daily, experienced less pain, required fewer pain-killing medications compared to those receiving a placebo. For analgesic purposes, pain-killing purposes, 2 to 4 grams of fresh ginger juice or extract taken daily is recommended. 2 to 4 grams of fresh juice. We're almost down, I don't know, a teaspoon? I mean, this is a minor amount. Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with essential oils?
Yes, I am.
And so, what about ginger and turmeric? As far as there are essential oils that are made that are ginger or turmeric.
Correct.
So, would you say that they have some medicinal properties?
There's no doubt they have medicinal properties. The problem is that they're highly refined. And the same logic that went into saying that this high-end curcuminoid extract of your turmeric is not as effective as the whole thing. Essential oil is not a whole food. Essential oil benefit is they extract and concentrate, and if they've got the right ingredient, it should actually be able to be absorbed by your body.
Yeah, that's true. The ones that I use, I can't put in my mouth. I can't take orally. I can ingest them. They're not just topical, because that the very thing of what you're saying. If I can take it internally, then it's more pure and concentrated, rather than the other stuff that's processed and diluted with something else. They're not safe to take internally.
No way. Are you saying there are some essential oils that are more pure than others?
Yes.
And therefore the pure ones that you tolerate well, orally?
Yes,
Okay.
because if it has on there the FDA suggested, like how the nutrition label, then they're safe to take internally. They are safe to take internally. If they don't have that on there, then you better not take it internally. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, completely. I consider the FDA a political organization, not a health organization.
Well,
They passed Viax, by the way, and how many people did they kill?
yeah.
So I'm not, as far as the nutritional content and says it's got this many milligrams, I believe that is probably accurate. But as far as saying that is automatically makes it safe, I'm a little more reticent to say that. I also happen to believe there's better quality and less quality oils. Anytime you've got a market like that, everybody wants to push their product. And in general, if it's too cheap, you probably ought to just leave it on the shelf.
No, I agree.
Because when you think of getting oil out of a plant, do you know how many plants you have to squash and extract to get a tablespoonful of oil? Massive amounts. Oil is a very low ingredient in most of our plants. Broccoli runs about 7% fat. So if you're going to get broccoli oil, you have to go through, what, a couple bushel to get a tablespoon? I don't know. I mean, it's massive, though. That's what would automatically make it more expensive. I have some of my patients endure essential oils. I've got some at my house. There's some obviously common ones and that we use, but as a general rule, I don't deal a lot with essential oils. I mean, some people tell me they're, for their tension headaches, they just put some peppermint on their temple and arnica and, et cetera, et cetera. What's that? Ginger powder probably could be the whole powdered root of the herb, so that wouldn't be considered an extract. Yes. Some people put ginger in their cooking, and depending whether it's steamed or not. But I was back in Costa Rica. The guide that day, we were going out to an excursion, and he said, does anybody want some ginger? For riding around the back of a bus and don't want anybody having an accident. So what does he do? Pulls out his knife, pulls out his tuber, and starts slicing people if they need some ginger. He had fresh ginger with him and sliced it off. So, of course, I took some, and it's not near as strong as ginger powder or a ginger tablet or something like that, but it is effective. And of course, he was using it for nausea, but it probably grows wild in his backyard for all I know. I mean, it's incredible. Okay, salicylic acid, commonly known as what? Aspirin. ASA, like you write in your notes, is acetyl salicylic acid. MSA is methyl salicylic acid. Acetyl salicylic acid is the man virgin and active form of the salicylate, which means it burns your stomach, it doesn't like your stomach too well, and it causes major irritation. If you take methyl salicylic acid, which is what you find in nature, like from white willow bark and probably strawberries here, it is in the inactive form, and after it goes through the liver, it changes to acetyl, ASA, salicylic acid. So let's take a look at that. Salicylic acid is the active ingredient in willow bark and folklore for pain. Aspirin is a synthetic derivative. Foods high in salicylic acid are berries, grapes, broccoli, spinach, chili peppers, cinnamon, ginger, rosemary, nutmeg, sage, basil, and strawberries. Now, if I had my choice, I would tell you to get strawberries. The seeds in the strawberry are one of your best detoxifying elements you can put in an intestinal tract. It's not just the berry, it's the seeds in the berry have been ranked about as high as you can for detoxification. So enjoy your strawberries. Yes, sir.
If a person has diverticuli, are you worried about the seeds in the strawberry?
Not unless you're in an active form. The old rule going through school was CBS, corn, beans, and seeds. Please avoid all these. That doesn't really hold out that well. If you're on a high fiber diet and you keep the intestinal tract cleaned out and you're not constipated trying to push stuff up in these diverticuli, these pockets, I'm not worried about you at all. So enjoy your strawberries. Low glycemic foods. Low glycemic means foods that cause less of an insulin response. We're going to be done here shortly. Plasma levels of high sensitivity C-reactive protein. This is the marker for coronary artery inflammation. This is the highly sensitive one. For systemic inflammation, were found to be positively associated with glycemic index and glycemic load. We've got some nurses here. 244 women from the Nurses' Health Study, age 45 to 82, with a stronger relationship in overweight women and normal women. So what they found out is that the plasma levels go up as your blood sugar goes up with this study they did. And the correlation was stronger in ladies who obviously had more insulin resistance here. Brown rice associated with improving the heart. Researchers at Temple University, Philadelphia, reported a component in brown rice that blocks the effect of angiotensin II, a precursor of high blood pressure and inflammation. Angiotensin II is something that's put off by the kidneys, so the kidneys must have been inflamed here. And so you have drugs that are, guess what? Not made out of rice. They're a chemical that blocks this chemical so you won't be hypertensive. We do things so backwards, it's painful. We find the chemical that tells the brain to give you blood pressure, and we block the chemical. We should say, why don't we go back and say, why is the kidney putting out this chemical? But see, if I did that, then I have to tell you to eat cabbage. And I have to tell you to eat your vegetables. And I have to tell you can't have your Coke. And I have to tell you that you need to be at the bar, or don't be at the bar. And see, medicine is very convenient for people who don't want to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've worked out a system so we can have the least amount of change. Doc, just fix me up and get me out of here. Don't tell me not to drink. Don't tell me not to eat what I want to, et cetera, et cetera. Just fix me up, Doc, and get me out of here. And some people refuse to call that health care, and I am blessed because I probably have a higher percentage of those people that come to see me, and I'm thankful.
Some people don't even want to do what the doctors tell them and still want the doctor to fix them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's another story.
poor compliance. This layer is stripped away. We're talking about here, the benefit here is stripped away when the brown rice is converted to white rice. Partially milled rice, and give you the names, both popular in Japan, are also protective. They say partially milled, which means it's got still some of the fiber left with it. Grapes could reduce heart disease. Dr. Foltz was the man who did the research on aspirin as far as anticoagulant. He's also the man who did the research on Welch's Purple Concord grape juice. You're right, Welch is paid for it. But this man wouldn't have to sign anything to be a compliment to get paid off. So I'm not too worried about him. Okay, phytochemicals in the grapes, both green, red, and black, have been found to reduce metabolic syndrome, which is high blood pressure and inflammation, at least according to the research on rats daily fed grapes in comparison to a diet high in fat. 3 months, those that added grapes had lower triglycerides, blood pressure, and inflammation. Dr. Boiling, researcher, commented that more studies are needed to work out on humans. Mediterranean diet, I think we've done that one enough. Mediterranean diet and nuts, they're helpful. Water sauteing versus ban. I'm not going to try to tell you ladies how to cook because you can do a better job than I am. But the idea is, how do you get rid of frying your menu? How do you get more fat out of the program? Obviously, you can do sauteing, you can do a stir fry in water, you don't have to have fat, you can steam your vegetables. If you steam them well, you're going to keep more flavor and more color, and they're going to be more appealing. More about steaming, I'm not going to go there. We'll skip these. Steaming techniques, I think you know more about that. This is just for consumption. So, any questions for me? I'll get this one off. So, obviously, you can see what I chose to speak about, inflammation. It just puts a different angle and a different understanding to the same thing. I don't have anything new to tell you. It's still the rave diet. The R is no refined foods. The A is no animal foods. The V is no vegetable oils. And the E is no excuses. That's Dr. Campbell, Dr. Ethelstein. I don't have any, and I probably should have put some on. I like pictures of coronary arteries. You can see it, it's easy to tell. Angiograms of coronary artery, you see them. They're 80, 90% blocked up. 32 months later shows the exact same person, the exact same coronary artery, the exact same picture, and they're probably 50, 60% open, just with blood flow. He's got the evidence. He doesn't have to worry about, oh, I don't know if it's going to work or not. No, it's concrete evidence. There's no doubt anymore. The doubt is finding people to do the program. Had a friend of mine, an older doctor, I can say that because he's older than me, Dr. Zinke, he says, we don't need any more research. We just need people to do what we already know. We don't need to spend more money on the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Association, the American Diabetic Association. They don't need any more money. We don't need a super drug because, quite frankly, it doesn't exist. The super drug is really simple. Go to bed at night, get your 8 hours of sleep, wake up in the morning praising the Lord, eat your breakfast like your life depends on it, and enjoy your day. How many more drugs do you think we need to make people healthy? Have we beat that one to death enough? If we can only find the silver bullet. It doesn't exist, folks. It doesn't exist. I will tell you one thing. I really appreciate my retinal surgeon for putting my eye back together after a retinal tear. That's where we shine big time in medicine in our country. Did a good job. He said, when you're done, you can expect to have 90% of your vision back. I just said, thank you, because that sure beats being blind in one eye. What's that? They call it spontaneous, and I'm not diabetic. I don't deal with blood pressure. Yes, I've been hit in the head as a kid. I've had concussions. I'm slightly nearsighted. They say that's a factor, but the bottom line was I'm really not set up for a retinal tear. Unfortunately, it went right through the macula densa, and that's what you see with folks when you want to read. So, that was on a Thursday evening. I was on my way to give a lecture. I gave the lecture and came back home and had to have a good talk with myself. See, I don't like doctors either, in case you're wondering, okay? I said, wait a minute. I'm going to go to bed, I'm going to wake up, and I've got to decide whether I'm going to submit myself to medical care. I got up, and I said, this is not, I had a minor tear before and didn't listen, but my eye completely cleared up. I thought I was home free. I'm done with this. Then I had a major tear, and the blood was just in the vitreous humor. It looked like you're looking into a bubbling fish tank, Gave the lecture, came home, did what I told you I did. I got up the next morning, I'm saying, you really don't want to lose your eye. This is not being too intelligent. So I called up Asheville Eye or whoever called up, and they said, you need to see an ophthalmologist. I said, I'm a doctor. I know what's going on. I need to see the retinist. I want an appointment with your retina. We'll come in at 2. We'll be glad to see you. So I went in, took one look at my eye, and says, it's not going to make any difference will I do the surgery now, which would have been on a Thursday or Friday, or whether I do it Tuesday. I prefer to do it on Tuesday because I got my own team. They know me. I go, Doc, I'll take your word for it. When you're more comfortable, I'm more comfortable. So Tuesday I was back in. He put my eyeball back together. The ophthalmologist that did the cataract, because you lose a lens in this process too. So I had to have the lens removed because it was forming a cataract. I said, Dr. Stone said I should run about 90%. He says, you look to me like you're working about 95% right now.
How recent did all this happen?
What's that?
How recent did all this happen?
How long ago?
Oh, let's see, 5, 6 years, 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Now, if you had to do the new lens, you still need glasses?
What I asked them for was to make me nearsighted because that's what I'm used to. Make both eyes equal. Some people go short and long and do all this kind of stuff. I wanted to be equal. Unfortunately, his machine didn't measure my eyeball correctly. So I've got one mid-length, so I lost my eye that I could read the fine print, the milligrams on the sodium, that kind of stuff. I lost that ability, but beyond that, I'm doing good. So this eye is nearsighted. They're pretty good. And this eye, a little bit further out.
So I guess that raises another question. So at some point, most of us, if we live long enough, probably have to have cataract surgery. Not necessarily, but the percentage goes up. You would have both eyes the same. So the brain doesn't have to work so hard to figure out what it's
Well, I've got a major advantage because I can tell how my other cataract is going. In other words, this eye, her blouse is white. This eye, I would normally tell it was white, but no, it got a slight beige to it. This one's got a little bit of yellow in it, which is not abnormal. But see, I have a benefit because most time when both eyes are the same and you look at someone, your brain is going to say that is white. But I go, no, that's got a hue to it now, so I know about this eye. So I can.
when you get the new lens, you'll make both eyes the same.
With their measuring techniques, I don't know how it's going to come out. I expected that they were going to be able to do what they said. No. But I'm not going to go back in surgery to put another lens in, believe me.
But if you did do it, you'd want to both be nearsighted, it's about the same.
I'm going to go for nearsight again. I like a nearsighted eye.
My sister had cataract surgery.
Okay?
And they gave her long distance vision. She's nearsighted like me, and all of her life when she wanted to read something really fine, she took her glasses off. Now when she takes her glasses off, she can't see it. And so she said, I
But
really prefer to be nearsighted rather than farsighted. It's more convenient. You do more reading.
well, you spend 60 years of your life being nearsighted, you're kind of used to it.
And you spend a lot of time reading.
Mhm.
I mean, most of us do.
Right now, glasses off. I can read the words, no problem. So that's a praise. I'm thankful. But I use it as an example because I'm not against medicine per se. What I'm against is a lot of the fallacies, and a lot of people don't need what they're getting. Or, to say it differently, many people are not getting treated the way they should by the medical community. That's my concern. But what are you going to do? Someone walks in the emergency room, they've got a minor infection. If you say, listen, if you put a charcoal poultice on that toe for a few days and get out of here, they would probably want you to, be out of there. There are so many things that a doctor can do if they would stop tying his hands or her hands if they really wanted to. And now we've got docs who are not part of the system, as in they're not working for a hospital or a major clinic. They're charging $40 per visit. You walk in here, you pay your flat rate, you get your diagnosis, you get what you need, you get your prescription, and you're out of here, no strings attached, nothing. Cash on the line. We don't even bill insurance. And a lot of people are doing that. Another group in our area is charging people $600 a year to cover their basic medical, whether you see me once, twice, or 5 times, whatever. But if you have to need lab work, it's above that. So if you need testing, it's above that. But for basic care, they're setting their clinic up. If I've got 2,000 patients times 6, I make 120 grand a year. I can live on that and keep my doors open here or whatever. If they have 5,000 people they take care of, I wouldn't want a doc to go much above that. Otherwise, you might be on a waiting list when you don't want to be. So we're seeing all this. I believe in Texas, they're doing more what I do. Phone consults. You can call a doc, talk over the phone, and get advice. I would always prefer and rather see a person eyeball to eyeball. But I still think I can do a halfway decent job over the phone. You know. Well, what do you think? Have we had a day?
Learned a lot.
Any other questions?
I think one I'll ask you.
Thanks for coming up with us.
She's got an advantage, yes. No, I've got the advantage because I get to stay. What's that?
Close with prayer.
Okay, before we depart, you know, when we say before you separate, it sounds like we're doing something terrible here, but you know what I mean, before we leave.
Put things away.
Father in heaven, what a blessing. And the little bit we know about ourselves, we want to say thank you, and we appreciate more what you have done, are doing for us. And I pray that you'll take our hearts and our minds, that we'll be willing to serve you, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and that we will give all to you. And I pray for each person here. Pray that you'll bless now with traveling mercies. And we ask all this in your powerful and healing name. Amen.